Hello and welcome to Echoes of History. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe and join us as we bring the past back to life. In the grand halls of English history, one name echoes louder than most: Henry VIII. A king remembered for power, ambition and excess. But perhaps above all, he is remembered for his 6 wives. 6 women bound to a monarch whose personal desires reshaped an entire nation. Some knew love, others betrayal, and still others the sharp edge of an executioner's sword. This is the story of Henry VIII and the 6 women who shared his throne and his fate. The first queen, Catherine of Aragon, was born into Spanish royalty in 1485, the youngest daughter of the powerful monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella. At first, she was married not to Henry, but to his elder brother, Prince Arthur. Yet Arthur died suddenly, and Catherine was left a widow in a foreign land. Years later, she became the bride of the young Henry VIII. Their marriage lasted over 20 years, a union far longer than all of Henry's others combined. Catherine was devoutly Catholic, deeply intelligent, and beloved by the English people. She stood by Henry through war and peace, through courtly intrigue and political turmoil. But there was one great tragedy. She failed to produce a surviving male heir. Their only living child was a daughter, Mary, who would later become Mary I of England. When Henry fell in love with a lady of his court, the captivating Anne Boleyn, his determination to end his marriage to Catherine set England on an unprecedented path. The Pope refused to grant an annulment. In defiance, Henry broke from the Catholic Church, establishing himself as the supreme head of the Church of England. Catherine was cast aside, stripped of her title, and forced to live her final years in seclusion. She died in 1536, still declaring herself Henry's lawful wife. Anne Boleyn, Henry's second wife, is perhaps the most infamous of them all. Charming, clever, and politically ambitious, she caught the king's eye and refused to become merely his mistress. Anne demanded marriage, and Henry, obsessed with her, risked his crown and his soul to have her. In 1533, they married in secret. Anne soon gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth, but Henry had gambled everything on the hope of a son. Elizabeth, though destined for greatness, was a disappointment to a king who craved a male heir. Anne's fiery personality, combined with her inability to give Henry a son, made her many enemies at court. Rumors of infidelity, whispers of treason, and accusations of witchcraft swirled around her. In May 1536, Anne was arrested. After a swift and brutal trial, she was found guilty of adultery and treason. On May 19th, she walked to the scaffold within the Tower of London. There, in front of the crowd, Anne Boleyn was executed by a French swordsman. Henry moved on quickly, but Anne's legacy endured. Her daughter Elizabeth would one day rule England for nearly half a century, guiding the nation into its golden age. Within days of Anne's execution, Henry was engaged once more. His third wife was Jane Seymour, a gentle and obedient lady-in-waiting. Where Anne was fiery, Jane was calm. Where Anne was ambitious, Jane was submissive. To Henry, Jane represented peace and stability. Most importantly, she gave him what no other wife had: a son. In October 1537, Jane gave birth to Prince Edward, the future Edward VI. Henry rejoiced, but his joy was short-lived. Jane fell gravely ill after the birth and died just 12 days later. Her death devastated Henry. He would later call Jane his true wife and chose to be buried beside her after his own death. Henry's fourth marriage was arranged for political reasons. To secure Protestant alliances in Europe, he agreed to wed Anne of Cleves, a German princess. Before meeting her, Henry saw her portrait painted by Hans Holbein. Impressed by the image, he consented to the marriage. But when Anne arrived in England, Henry was appalled. He claimed she looked nothing like her portrait and famously described her as a Flanders mare. Their marriage was never consummated, and within 6 months it was annulled. Yet Anne was treated kindly. She accepted the separation with grace and was granted a generous settlement. She remained in England for the rest of her life, often referred to as the king's beloved sister. Not long after, Henry married again, this time to Catherine Howard, the young and vivacious cousin of Anne Boleyn. Henry, now middle-aged and in poor health, was enchanted by her youth and beauty. But Catherine carried dangerous secrets. Past relationships with other men came to light, and soon rumors of adultery during her marriage reached the king. Betrayal was something Henry could not forgive. In 1542, Catherine Howard was condemned for treason. She was only about 20 years old when she was beheaded on Tower Green, meeting the same fate as her cousin Anne Boleyn. Henry's sixth and final wife was Catherine Parr, a woman of intelligence, learning, and compassion. She had been twice widowed before marrying the king, and she acted more as a nurse and companion than as a passionate lover. Catherine helped reconcile Henry with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, restoring them to the line of succession alongside young Edward. She was a supporter of religious reform and often engaged in theological debate with the king. Henry died in 1547, leaving Catherine a widow once again. She remarried, this time for love, to Thomas Seymour. Tragically, she died the following year during childbirth. You've been watching Echoes of History. What are your thoughts on the 6 wives of Henry VIII? Share your views in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.